G'day everyone. Sorry it's been a while. I keep apologizing for taking time between these videos, but as you know, I've got a pretty busy job and I just bought a new car, so I've been working quite a lot to uh, cover those expenses. Anyway, yeah, it's been some time, also because I'm working on an app with a couple of friends to do with art. And once that comes out, I'll give you more information on it and maybe you'd be interested in downloading that. But for now, let's stick to figure drawing and anatomy and get into the pecs this time, the pectoral muscles, the front of the torso. I think last time we did the scapula, so we're going back to the front now, and we're kind of working down from the top down. So if you've been following the videos in order, you know that we've gone from the head down to the neck, shoulders, the scapula, and now we're on the front at the pecs. And I'm going to delve into the serratus magnus also a little bit. These are some muscles that kind of stick out on the side of your rib cage, especially in males and guys that are, well, hero figures that you see in comics. And that's if you want to draw that way, really push that musculature of the superhero. So I'm going to begin with just the, what have we got here? I'll set up a new layout on Corel Draw. I think that's what I use. Okay. So we've got our rib cage. Let's put that in. I'll just do something simple for now. Leg shape, and I don't know what you're up to, what your preference is, if you like doing box shapes instead. And I encourage you to try both things to see what works for you better. And then remember we've got our clavicles coming out. Can see a part of that scapula from the back creeping over. That's the acromion process. Shocking arrow. I'm just warming up. And remember we've got our humerus bones. We'll draw it on this side too. And the important thing to remember is on the humerus bone, there's like a thing called a tubric. I think it's a tubercle, and it's sort of the upper third, located in the upper third of the humerus bone. And I'll change the color here because this is where we're going to introduce the pec muscles, pectoralis. This is the manubrium and our sternum. That's part of our bone structure of the rib cage. On the pec, you've got this coming from the sternum. Okay, a kind of triangle, and then you've got another part coming from maybe the first third. So say you've got this clavicle here, I'm going to the manubrium. On the first third, you'll have this other part of the pec. So we're going to focus mainly on these two parts. You've got the one part here, the very bigger part that's taking up quite a bit of real estate, coming from the sternum. So that's your rib cage. And it's coming from this area here, and then going to the point on the humerus, the tubercle. And then you've got your clavicles. I'll draw that one there. And remember, I just said that first third, you've got another portion of the pec going to the tubercle. Now, this is very nitpicky here, but probably a good thing to know is that when it's coming from, okay, let me just get my bearings here. This top portion is lower, connecting lower on that tubercle, and this other portion is connecting a bit higher. Okay, so it's not like, oh, I got enough space here. It's not like this goes here and then this is above it. It actually twists. Okay, and you'll find that in different parts of the body, like the latissimus dorsi, which we'll go into probably next week, does a similar thing. It sort of twists into the bone. The muscle twists. Okay, so that's a general, well, a very brief explanation on the pecs and their insertions and origins. So what I'll do here, I'll erase this and we'll go into some examples. And remember, folks, that I'm not going so in depth into this anatomy stuff that you you know, when unless you're becoming a medical doctor, these these uh tutorials are probably best for you if you just want to sort of hint at some musculature. So here you see a good example. I love these examples where you can see the skeleton underneath, and we can see how the pec or the muscles can fit on top of that skeletal image. And I'll just superimpose on this. So this is, oh, here we have our manubrium. Oh, sorry, the sternum and the manubrium. Okay, our clavicles. One there and one there. Humerus. And these are the bones that you mainly, well, the only bones you look at to make the pecs work. So I'll see if I can see this tubercle here. Not really, but it would be situated around there, I think. And what you do, you can start up here or you can start on the manubrium, on the sternum. Just fan it out to the connection point, okay? And what we've got here, we've got the head of the humerus, and we've got the bone going down that we can see to the right here. And I've got the pec. Whoops, I'm getting a bit silly there. It doesn't connect to the head of the humerus, it connects much lower. Okay. And then I can see a bit of this top portion of the pec that's connecting to the clavicle. And it goes to that area too. So let's put in some striations of the muscle. Now let's imagine we've got our clavicle and really moving upwards. Well, that arm is going up. Okay, and I can see a brachio coracobrachialis. That's if you go back to the bicep video, you'll know what that is. And you mainly see that when your arm is lifted up. Anyway, we're focusing on our pecs. So we can see some striations here, and it's going up and under the bicep area. You see that? And then I've got that clavicle here, and from that first portion, you can see a little bit of that muscle, the top portion of what we've got here. I'm representing that muscle, okay? Now, I'll do another video at some point in the future because I can understand that the order of muscles can be confusing, what goes on top of what. But if you look at what we've got here, we can see that the pec is dominating that area, but on the arms, it's the biceps and triceps sort of dominating. Then we've got the deltoids kind of hugging the pectoralis. Okay, so we'll get into a video on areas where it sort of gets confusing. I mean, at the back we had that the scapula where the order of the teres major, and then the tricep, the medial head of the tricep. I'm sorry, the long head of the tricep, and then you have the teres minor and the infraspinatus. It can get a bit confusing, but we'll practice it together and try to drill in the order of things. I'll get into some examples here, but before I do that, maybe I'll do another example of the pec here, and then we can talk about the serratus magnus, because you can see a bit of the serratus magnus here on this sculpture. And where do you see it? These sort of bits that point down towards the abdominal area, okay? But we'll focus on the pecs first, and we'll get into that in just a second. Okay, so starting. Oh no. Let me get rid of it. I'm gonna start fresh. Okay. Can I draw? Oh, sorry, guys. Let me put my drawing layer up on top. Okay, I think we're good now. So, how shall I do this? I'll superimpose on the figure here, the statue, rib cage. That'll be the whole of the rib cage there. We've got the thoracic region. Okay, I'm doing it very simply here. And where shall we find our humerus? I would say it is around here and connecting to the edge, to the elbow. On here, I see a little bulge here, and I can't really see where his arm is going there, but let's say it might be going around here, so he's got the bone there and the muscles sort of bulging out because it's pressing against this surface. Okay, the clavicles, I'll put one there, and we know it's above. I might change this. But for now, I'll see how that works. But we know the Aquarium process sort of hovers above our humerus head of the humerus there. Okay, let's begin on this side. Now, the front of the bone is there, and this, let me change the colors. I'll start with the clavicle region. So the first third going up to here, and it's very thin and squashed, I think. And the area from the sternum will be going, you can see it up here. And then, oh, let me mention this in a second, but there's also portions that hang on the rib cage, like that. So you've got that. We've got our clavicular portion of the pectorals coming from that. And they all make their way up towards that tubercle of the humerus. And then if you look at some anatomy books, there's always a bit of muscle under the pec, sort of connected to the rib cage. And I'll show you here. It's probably easier to tell. So through the nipple, to the tubercle, it would connect probably around there. And then this other portion, the clavicular portion, going down. So look at the nice flow. Okay. And then that little portion under the nipple area, there's another bit of pec there. So try not to forget that. So let's do it again on the side here. Okay. Just sort of feeling the rhythm of the pose, the head, neck. Okay, sort of squashes in there. And remember, everyone, you're just using the image as a reference. If you feel you've got a certain flow working for yourself, go with it. So I'll draw okay, I feel like drawing it around here. I'm sort of not looking at the reference too much, because I keep on telling you not to use it so much of a crutch. I want you to be artists and use your own sort of intuition to figure things out. So I'm drawing, I didn't even draw the clavicle, but it's from that first portion, I'm doing like a nice little flow. The second part from the manubrium up even higher. Okay, and then a little bit of muscle under there. Okay, and same on this side. So I'm not looking again at the reference. I'm just feeling a nice rhythm that'll work for me. Okay. And I quite like that. Okay. So I've got that little portion showing down under there. And remember also that we're working with three-dimensional shapes. So this portion really squashes as it goes up. So you could emphasize a um bit of chunk as it squashes and squeezes its way up to the top there. This is more stretched out, so I won't emphasize that as much. Okay. And now I'll probably, I'll finish these off. I'll just remember we've got the deltoid, the front delt coming off the last third portion of the clavicle, okay? So we've got that pectoral portion, and then there's the deltoid portion. And in between, that's you'll find a space. I think it's called a fossa of some sort, but let's not worry about it for now. So you can see here it's really squashed against him. So I'm going to push that a little bit to see a bit of the side. Delt. Here it really squashes. Let me change the color to emphasize that. Squashes around here because this portion is going towards his head. And then if I wanted to, you could start sort of showing off the coracobrachialis, because remember, you can see it as the arm is lifted. There's a layer here which will be part of the teres minor and the tricep. There's also, we'll get into next week, is the latissimus dorsi. Okay, and that's the part of the back muscles, a very big lat muscle. Now let's start to introduce, so don't worry about this for now, we're going to get into it at some point, but at this point I'd like to introduce the serratus magnus. And this is something, like I said before, you see on a lot of superheroes and athletic muscular figures. Okay, so that's our rib cage. And our rib cage, if you go from the manubrium and if you've got the nipples around there, and you draw a line, this is a little tip I learned from wherever, but okay, you've got the ribs going like that, and at this point, it sort of changes angle and goes up back to the rib, to the manubrium, the sternum. Why do I keep on mixing those up? And here it goes around to the back. So bang, bang, bang. I don't really count too many of the rib cage bones, since we're just focusing on the outside, okay? But if you want to, go for it. Okay, why do I bring this up? The serratus magnus are muscles that they're shaped kind of like rounded feathers, and they fit on the rib cage like so. Okay. And usually when you're drawing, you'll see maybe 3 to 4 of them. So okay, I'll put the clavicles, humerus, and then I'll change the color to black again, darker color. Okay, we've got our pecs, okay? This will make sense when I put this down. Okay, so say these pecs are covering the rib cage like that. Those serratus magnus muscles that stick to these bones on the rib cage, and they've got them here as well, of course. You can see some hiding from underneath the pec muscles, okay? Maybe there's another one down here. And you can show maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 lines to emphasize the muscles in your drawings. So say you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you'd probably So see, remember that line there? You can do these lines that meet with that other line that we drew from the manubrium through the nipple out towards the corner of the rib cage. So under the pec, you can start drawing maybe 3 or 4 of these lines to hint at those serratus magnus muscles. And the thing that really makes them pop is the, later on we'll get into the abdominal muscles, okay? And the abdominal muscles have like this, I think it's a linea alba, it's called. I'll have to research it. And you've got obliques. And from there, this is where you get that interlocking sort of look of the rib cage, serratus magnus going to the abs, okay? So that the connecting bits to the abs we'll focus on another week, but a good point for us to learn today is beginning with these knowing where the serratus magnus are located. So again, if you've got a rib cage, we've drawn our rib cage here, and if we've got our, say I do that trick through the nipple to the corner of the rib cage, and I'll have the ribs kind of going like this. And these ribs have the serratus magnus attached. Okay. You see it here a little bit. Hope this is making sense. And in another video, we'll focus on those connections that go towards the abs. So you would have a shape like this. Okay. And he's really stretched out here, so you wouldn't see it as much. And now we've got our abs. So that's an introduction to the serratus magnus. And it's a little bit messy, but guys, really take your time in understanding how these things work. Just don't rush through it. Let's have another example here. Okay. You can see that serratus magnus pretty well, and the pecs are pretty well developed. And I'll start over here. Don't worry about that. I won't superimpose here. I'll just I'm gonna try just to be different. The box shape, okay? And guys, there's no rules. Like, if you figure out a way to make it work with a triangle, go for it. Just experiment and see what works best for you. I've never tried it, trying to make a rib cage out of a triangle, but if you want to try and make it work, go for it. Whatever works for you. We're not dictators here. This is art. Should have fun. It's like a lab. Being an artist is like being a scientist in your own lab. The lab is wherever you draw from. And you're just experimenting, okay? And it's fun. Okay, so clavicles. Again, I'm just using the torso as the reference. I'm not gonna keep staring at it and trying to copy everything. I'm just using the knowledge that we're learning to put everything together. And I thought this was going to be a short video, but I'm sorry about that, guys. I'll make sure the next one is a bit shorter on the latissimus dorsi. But I noticed when I started watching other artists do their thing, I was like, oh, I'm not this. This is boring. But it's best to see and follow along if you can. I used to just want to learn the um that first part of the video I did and then just take off and do it on my own. But spend some time. This is a craft, you know. We've got to spend some time in honing the craft. Don't just fly through it. If you want to get good, be patient. Okay, so the pecs, that portion there, remember, and this clavicular portion underneath that, um, this here, this portion up higher, and it fans like so. I'll add on a little bit more here. So say we've got, I'll just generally put in like a bicep area and our delts. So the delts are on the outer portion of the clavicle, and we should see a bit of side delt. And then if you want to figure out whether serratus magnus kind of lie, good. I'll put in maybe 3 there, and it lies underneath pecs. Now, if I look at my reference, this pec is really bulging because he's a muscular figure. And if I put this, should be higher, and we've got our arm coming down there like that. Where a bicep would lie, sort of. And you could hint at the linea alba if you want, the part going to the, I think it's the oblique, but you can hint at that. So we've got those cool looking crossovers and the nipple around there. So let's try this side. Okay. The delt, got all this portion of bicep muscle that would be underneath. Delt sits on top of all of it. I'll bring up that, I'll sort of compress that delt just to push the idea that he's moving his shoulder forward somewhat. Okay. And if you want to start putting these contour lines, I'd encourage you to do so, just to push that sense of 3-dimensionality. Now, this part is more bulged in this area because I feel that this arm is closer to his body. Now we can see it's really prominent over here. Okay, so the muscle serratus magnus, you've got those bits, sausage-looking sort of bits. I'll put about 4 of them there. Come down towards the abdomen. So we've got 1, 2. There's 1 here. Now this area is not as you can't really see that those serratus magnus as much, and that's because it's covered by the latissimus dorsi, which is at the back of the body, and it'll connect somewhat like that to the front, but we'll focus on that another time, okay? Okay, so just we focus today on serratus magnus and the pecs. All right, so let's do a couple more examples. Hope you're learning some things from this. another sculpture. And if you have a I don't know, like a museum or art gallery near you, you're not always needing to draw from the paintings. Have a look at the sculptures, because I think you'd probably learn a lot more being able to see the shadows up close and the muscles and where they connect, the overlaps, much more so than the painting, I think. And if you really want to get good at anatomy, I'd encourage you to maybe look into a bit of sculpture if you have time. Okay, some of these sculptors are really good figure drawers. Okay, so again, I'm just sort of glancing at the figure, and I'll imagine that that one's going there, and that humerus bone is going there. Okay, so we've got bicep at the front. Now pec. Bit extra there. Pec on this side. Okay, deltoid. I'll start playing around and adding the trapezius. See, you don't have to do everything in complete order. Just when you've got enough knowledge, you just sort of play around and add things where you feel like you sort of get into a flow. Okay, and maybe I'll start adding the sternocleidomastoids. Now here, let's try that trick again. Where it goes through the nipple to the. If you go to the corner, the nipple should find that line at some point. So you've got the serratus magnus now, okay, and going to be connecting. You've got those cross sections going to the abs. Now I'm not even looking at the reference at all now, just sort of riffing. Okay. Where do we see a bit of bulge? Mine is a bit different here, but I can push that bulge there. I'm stretching out here, so I could push that stretch instead of having it down like that. I really push that stretch, and then I can see a bit of the lat and teres major. So just to quickly hint at these layers that we've been talking about. So you got the pec, and then there's the lat will connect to the humerus at some point, and it goes around the back. And that's where you get your armpit. And you've got another teres major connecting to the scapula. But don't be disheartened if you don't understand these things for now. Just focus on the simple things, and we'll get into these things slowly in the future. Okay? So remember, pec, the top portion of the pec, a little bit of extra pec there, and we've got our delts covering that. Okay? And one last one. so I don't bore you or keep you guys here too long. And it's another um, statue. Okay, and this one I'll just superimpose. Let's see how we do it here. Okay, so head down there, nice flow. Rib cage. Obviously, I'm not going to draw the rib cage like that. Just be mindful of where the borders are. Okay. And the humerus, I'll say it's around here. This one, it's sort of hard to see. You can see the clavicle on that side a bit, but let's focus on this side. Okay. Now you can see the pec. And if I continue there, it'll be going like that, I imagine. This is very thin. It appears to be thin there. And then we've got this little portion down here that I kept talking about. And a line through to the corner of the rib cage. And you can see some of these serratus, magnus. There's about 4 there. And they would, if you really wanted to push that idea, they go down to the abs like that. And then remember in the other example, you can see these strongly, but then it sort of fades out there because the lat is covering part of it. So in actuality, these serratus magnus would be connecting all the way around the rib cage like that, but this lat, that big muscle from the back, kind of covering the portions of it. And that's how I would represent that. You might represent it a different way, but if it looks good to you, then stick with it. Okay? So that is pretty much it for today. We've focused on the pectoralis and the serratus muscles, serratus magnus. And these are the front and sort of side muscles of the rib cage. We've done our traps, we've done our scapula. So next week I might focus on the latissimus, and you might be able to better understand how it covers this portion here. It's a big muscle and it's pretty simple, so it might be a bit shorter than this video, but I'm sure you wouldn't complain about that. So until next time, hopefully it won't be too long. Take care.